you could actually open your eyes and your mind and venture out into different areas. So we're back again. As we said, we're talking so much. We turned it into a quality two-parter rather than trying to cram it into a single episode. So last time out, we kind of left off. We were talking about personal growth, development, professional growth, and development. But let's talk about the journey and so the actual process of being in property. How has it gone? Can anybody put their hands up and say it's all been plain sailing? Everything's gone swimmingly well. There's been problem free. Any hands going up? No. So why is that then? Tell me, what's the reality? What have you experienced?
God, who wants to bare their soul first?
Sounds like you, Anthony.
There's so much unknown, isn't it? Everything takes twice as long, probably costs twice as much. Yeah, it's just, so much can change. There could be time delays, cost overruns. I mean, on some projects, anything that can go wrong does go wrong, and you just have to persevere. Really, you just have to. I think that has to. I'm sure within every property developer, there's an element of that within us that we soldier on, because if you don't have that in you, then you'll soon get overwhelmed. And I think having good partners one way or another is also good. Someone to bounce your troubles off is also very powerful, yeah. And a good team of professionals around you.
Come on, Anthony, you wanted to bare your soul. I'm sure you did.
Yeah, well, I mean, even with my experience, sort of doing what I've been doing for so many years, and it still goes wrong on site. You put your trust into other trades, and maybe they're not quite on side with what you want to do or what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, things go wrong. As you said there, there's always problems that are unearthed when you start a build. So yeah, things take longer. You fall out with people. They cost more money. So it's a case of earning your stripes. And I think, as you said there, it's perseverance is what I think defines a proper investor, or someone who's going to make this against someone who's maybe just going to dip the toe in and fall flat on their face. You need to just keep at it, because it doesn't happen overnight. It is like rolling a snowball uphill, and then one day you'll get to the top and it just becomes a lot easier. But
well said.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bring too much pain into this part of the conversation, but thank you by the way, for sharing and being vulnerable enough to actually say that perhaps things haven't always gone well, because a lot of times the whole Instagram world doesn't portray the reality of what it can be sometimes. So it's interesting. You both said, just in that last section, perseverance was a key characteristic that you need to be successful in this business to survive in the long run. Are there any other characteristics that you think, not necessarily all about, dealing with problems on site, but what else do you think are qualities or characteristics that we might need to stick it and go full time in property?
Sense of focus and urgency. So one thing that struck me when trying to build up momentum by myself was, like Anthony said, the perseverance and having that reason why, something to come back to. But yeah, it is a long slog, and you quite quickly realise that there's so much talk out there of get rich quick schemes, but you really do need to graft away and put the hours in, put the reps in to add value. You can't just click your fingers and suddenly you get rewarded for turning up. You need to put the hours in and find those opportunities and just keep on plugging away.
I think it was Seth Godin, might be wrong, but I think it was Seth Godin who said it takes 6 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah. Certainly makes sense.
Yeah. So we've got the focus and the having a reason why. I thought was an interesting one. Anybody else got any more they want to add to this shopping list of qualities for us?
Yeah, I think I know a lot of people say it, but I didn't start with clear goals, and you can end up sort of being 2, 3, even 4 years into it, and actually just sort of plodding along, just thinking, oh, I'm flipping these properties, but without actually having a clear path or clear goal. You don't actually know whether you're getting to where you want to go. So I think having clear goals and referring back to them regularly is something that I'll definitely do now. Efficiency, I think time efficiency, cost, being efficient with everything you do, even the way you interact with people, I think that's key. And I think you've got to be cautiously optimistic, because in the past I've sort of been a bit too optimistic with GDVs and how long things are going to take, and you sort of get the perfect storm sometimes where your worst case scenario suddenly turns into your best case scenario, and then it's very, your options, your exit options suddenly become less or restricted if you've got less margin in there, and it can become very stressful. So yeah, cautious optimism, I would say.
So you still got the word optimism in there, so that's good.
Yeah, sorry, bit downbeat, but
well, you probably still need to be optimistic or have a positive outlook, I think. But I think cautious realism sprinkling on top sounds fair to me.
Bit of resilience in there as well.
Bit of resilience, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was.
I have one. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
It's to be when you're penny wise and pound foolish. And that's something. And I've kind of learned over the years that if you have good tradesmen, even though they may cost that extra bit, or good architect or whatever, they are worth their weight in gold. Because getting it wrong can be very, very costly indeed. So it's about being, really wise in when you see those cost estimates come through and who they're coming through from, and being able to make that decision as to say, no, I've worked with this guy, I know he knows his stuff, he's worth every penny. And it's difficult, isn't it, when you're on a budget, on site, and you really want to make every penny count, but it's just being really careful, when you make those kind of decisions as to who you bring on board to work with you. And if you have good contractors, hold them closely.
Yeah. Well, I hope they're not listening. They're going to be knocking on your door asking for a pay rise now if you said they're worth the weight in gold. But I know what you mean. I think it was Sam Collette who said bounce back ability as well, because and there was someone else who referred me to a saying just the other day. I'm trying to think of the source. I'll try and remember as we're talking, but a previous coach of a good friend of mine, he said, if you have 50 good days in a year, you're doing well. So, but I don't know if that's true, but I think, we need a bit of resilience and bounce back ability. I think it features
80-20 principle.
80-20, yeah. So we've got those. So there's probably others. I've got a few of my own, but let's move on. I think we've got, we've spoken about some things on project level. We've spoken a little bit. I probably want to come back to some of the strategies, but we refer that to a bit. But let's just say some of you have been involved for a number of years now, a decade or more in some cases. Some of you for about half that time, and some of you recently. But what do you think about change over time, cycles? What are your thoughts on that?
What cycles in what, the properties itself, or
well, do you,
everything?
Do you see? Not the BMX bike. No. So do you see evidence of clear cycles, economic or property specifically?
Yeah, I think that. Oh, go on, Sven.
Yeah, okay. So when I started, it was 2013, and that was a rising market. So it was a lot easier to make money. Things were selling very quickly. So that was obviously when you're flipping and you're selling, you're always a buyer and a seller if you're going on to buy the next property, that is. But it can give you a sort of false perception of how easy it might be to move on to the next project. And then it was actually probably Brexit was, I mean, if it was, the market was down to have a slowdown anyway, but Brexit was probably the catalyst for that. But then suddenly things weren't moving nearly as quickly in terms of selling. So then it puts pressure on moving on to new projects, and probably over leveraged or to out of my comfort zone anyway. And then, like I said before, it's if your profit margins aren't great or things are taking slightly longer, the cycle can, if things are moving very quickly, it's a lot easier to deal with.
Good. How do you, Sven, then seeing the cycle?
Well, I mean, I guess one I've kind of I mean, like Sven says, I mean, there's lots of strategies that fit different times. I mean, it's very area specific as well. I mean, I'm in the Northeast. We've not really experienced any capital growth for a while now. So maybe, you know, things like you would normally use in a rising market, like flipping, don't particularly work all that well unless you really buy below market value. But I mean, like when the PD rights came in for office to resi, a lot of people jumped on that, gobbled up all of the old offices, and then we started needing to build more offices to cater for the actual office use. I mean, we're probably going to see a dip in that now, just with obviously what's happened with Corona, people probably working from home, but also retail removing. Are we going to contract to a point where town centres are smaller, we've got more residential, and then there's going to be a need then for retail to come back? So I think yeah, there are cycles. I think as you start doing a bit more in property, you just spot the opportunities places if you've kind of got your thinking cap on. So that's what I've noticed anyway.
Excellent.
Being open to different opportunities, isn't it? So keeping your eyes open and kind of going with the flow, seeing what works.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a couple of schools of thought, isn't there? There's like, you know, stay in your lane, or diversify and grow, or, you know, don't be the ostrich with your head in the sand, waiting to have your head bitten off. So stay in your lane is like stick to what you know, perfect it, you know, the cookie cutter, keep repeat. But then, you know, will that always work? Will it always serve you? Alternatively, if you could actually open your eyes and your mind and venture out into different areas. But of course, if you spread yourself too thinly and too quickly, trying to step up too fast or take on too much, it could have consequences there too. So it's a balance, isn't it?
I like to refer to the 70-20-10 rule. So you spend 70% of your time focused on your core strategy, and then you've got these little side projects. So they may evolve into something else. You may rely on them. You may need to completely transition to something else.
Yeah, definitely.
That brings, that's actually interesting, isn't it? So having basically, you said 70-20-10, I say 60-20-20, doesn't matter. But the idea is you have one key strategy, you have other things going on at the same time. Now, pretty much, well, most of you either have more than one thing going, or you have, let's say, an alternative income stream, or, perhaps some savings to tide you over. Is that fair? Is that pretty much how you see it? You've tried to de-risk your position in some way?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember when I was doing single lets, and I just looked at the level of exposure there. One tenant not paying, and in London, rents are higher, mortgages are higher. And then we just decided to shift, to turn them more progressively over time into HMOs. And that was to help to diversify really, and to make sure that we had, might have one or two tenants not, in difficulty, not paying, but you won't have 6. So, that was a transition that was, we just looked at how things were then and thought, right, okay, this would put us in better stead. But if you look at the HMO market now, very saturated. Local authorities are making crazy demands in terms of, I don't know what the nature of payments they're asking for now, but, they want you to pay per unit, and it's becoming more and more challenging. So, I know some people who are leaving HMOs and converting them back to single let. So it's that fluidity really, depending on what's, you know, the prevailing, you know, economic and political environment. Yeah, that's how we survive, isn't it?
You picked up quite a few different things there in that, you know, little segue about, you know, all of you, about one, economic related cycles and shocks like Brexit, like coronavirus. You know, nobody didn't touch on the global financial crisis, but that's just in the last 10 years. Well, that's 3 big, you know, big economic events in the last 10 years. But also, well, I probably wasn't thinking of it when I asked the question. Very good point about how different strategies either come into vogue and go out of vogue, but also perhaps are more relevant in certain areas or certain parts of the market. That was really interesting. Thanks to share that. I think the other thing I wanted to talk about is in terms of what have you learned along the way? What don't they teach you in the books or in the property school? What surprised you as you've gone along? Anybody want to? I probably should ask individual questions, but I don't want to put anybody on the spot. But is anybody got anything? Well, you know, this really surprised me. I wasn't expecting this. Anything like that?
The overarching powers of building control and planning. Yeah, that was a shocker for me.
Only building control and planning. What about surveyors?
Well, surveyors, but yeah, they can just stop you dead in your tracks, and I mean dead in your tracks. So yeah, there are compliance issues there that you just have to really you really have to be on the ball about, because they could just stop you in your tracks.
External forces then, okay, like building control. Anthony, you look like you're going to offer something in there.
Well, I guess the thing I think is, I can't remember the saying now. It's when you overestimate what you can achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what you can do over a period of time. And I guess it just goes back to that snowball thing. I think probably we're all guilty when we started off. We were thinking, yeah, we'll take over the world in a couple of years' time, but it does take a little bit longer than you think, but you kind of don't realize what's happening to you because it's kind of all working behind the scenes, and then all the forces come together. So again, it goes back to perseverance. I think that's that's the biggest lesson I've had to learn. Just keep at it.
Any other ones in this area?
I think for me, it's how long things can take. Conveyancing, buying or selling. I think one commercial property we bought just because of the way the title deed was split, and I think there was 8 different title numbers on the one deed. So yeah, the solicitor wasn't very pleased with me, but I think that one took about 10 months to buy from putting the offer in. There was nobody else involved, so it was just to go through all the due diligence there, and then also financing. When you want to finance, a lot of finance companies say they can do it very quickly, and then even like bridging finance can suddenly take 2 months.
There's a good one there with the legal aspect. I mean, that's one thing they don't really teach you in books and courses and whatever else. But yeah, you come up against it's more the older school ones who are stuck in their ways. I think they can cause problems when you're in the legal stages of purchases or remortgages or whatever else. I mean, we had one remortgage going through for a HMO, and the solicitor we were using decided to tell the mortgage company that it wasn't a HMO for whatever reason. It was just wasn't their interpretation of what a HMO was, which delayed us by a couple of months while we were sort of but no, really, it is a HMO. So yeah, the people you encounter on the journey as well, I guess. Yeah, ups and downs there.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I had a similar case myself, to be honest, Anthony, where I was trying to convert a property into separate bedsits with self-contained facilities. Under the Housing Act, that is still an HMO. But I was also applying for a grant, an empty homes grant, and the empty homes offer was telling me it's not an HMO. And I said, it is. And he's like, it's not. But he's got the grant money. And I was. So it's not an HMO. No, it's not an HMO. So we remove the kitchens and have a shared kitchen. That's an HMO. That's an HMO. So yeah, the external forces and control that people can have, and it's interesting you should say that. There's a role as well in a state agency. They call it a sales progression or sales progressor. We also have to be that way, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about that. What else is, we talked about what they don't teach you, if you like, at property school or in the books. But if you had your time again, some of you it's relatively early, but if you had your time again, would you do anything different? And if so, what would it be?
I guess starting earlier would be, I guess that's a common one. I mean, I didn't get going till probably 34, 35, and sort of I had the background knowledge to have got going a lot sooner. It's just a confidence thing, I guess, at the time. So that would be the biggest one. And I mean, I'm going to say it just because I run a networking group, but networking is I wish I'd started that a lot sooner as well, because what's happened since we've begun has been crazy. So yeah, get going and yeah, get networking as well. That would be my advice to my younger self.
I'll second that with the networking there. I think that's key. Just key networking. You know, you can't do it on your own. It's not possible. Not possible at all.
Another big up for networking. Carl, you look like you were anticipating.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to say. Yeah, I touched on it earlier, but focus was the big thing for me. So I spent a lot of last year kind of strategizing, and what I came to realize certainly more in this year is it's all about adding value and focusing on the areas of the business that they're going to bring results. They're the key result areas. So setting up systems, come up with logos, building websites, all of those things add very little value. They need to be done, but you choose when to do them. I think things like finding opportunities and looking for deals and solving problems, that's where you add the value. It's easy to be a busy fool and keep yourself busy, but one thing I like to think about is, imagine if someone was paying your wages and you had to write a report at the end of the week, or you had to answer to them, say, well, yeah, this week, so I managed to create a website and we've got a new logo, and well, where's the money coming from? So that's helped me a few times to think about if I was employed. So, for example, would your employer be happy if you kind of just sloped off work at 4 o'clock every afternoon, or just try and keep yourself disciplined as if someone was paying you?
Well, someone is.
Well, yeah.
It's yourself.
Yeah.
So it goes back to what Daniel said earlier, though, isn't it, about accountability there, I think. So I'm not trying to lead you into answering that question, by the way, Daniel, but it was like...
You're right, it is. I try and... Everybody's got 24 hours in a day. It's up to you what you choose to do with those 24 hours. You know, you can say, oh, you know, I've got a job, I'm struggling. Well, you get up earlier, go to bed later. You know, you just... If you tell yourself these things, you're just having yourself on. You know, you're telling yourself that you can't do it when you can do anything you want. If you focus on it, you can do anything. You've just got to either get around the right people. If there's someone who you know, someone who you might have heard of, or your cousins, aunties, sisters done something in property, just ring them up and ask them a question. You know, ask them what they've done. And it's like the network. As soon as you get around those people, they'll give you the tips. No one's keeping them. It's not like a trade secret. Anyone will tell you anything what to do. You know, especially the property people, a sound bunch of people as well. You know, everybody's willing to help. You know, if you're going through troubles, even non-property related, I'm pretty sure everyone will help you out. So that's what I'd say.
Sounds good. I mean, there's a big thing about belief there, isn't there? Right, when you started, you were talking about belief, and it can be done, but also about resourcefulness, about, you know, putting yourself out there, asking people for help and advice.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to pay for every piece of advice and help that you get either.
Well, just ask anyone who you know. If somebody's done it, they've done it. So ask them the questions, you know.
Yeah. Cool.
Can't hurt.
So I'm thinking you've probably got 10 or 15 minutes maybe. So we're going to make this count, right? The last 5, 10, 15 minutes. So is there any massive game-changing moments or even a mindset shift that anyone's had? They go, this was it for me. This just shifted gears. This just put me in a different place. Is there anyone got an example like that? And by the way, if you haven't, I'll quickly move on. But anything like that in that area? Just let's finish with a nice punchy high.
Mine were just joining the apprenticeship program, really. The accountability and being around the people who's done it. You know, the guy who runs it's all right as well, which helps. So, but that honestly, that's been the biggest change to me. You know, nothing much has changed from when I'm not doing much differently from when we started to when we finished, but a lot's happened. So, you know, my day-to-day routine has not really changed much, but a lot has happened. You can't really explain how it's helped. I can't say it's exactly this, but a lot's changed. You know, I'm seeing opportunities that I didn't see before. That's what I'd say.
Well, there's a £50 note heading your way as we speak for that. So thanks for that endorsement. But any other game-changing moments?
I think mine, has been again. It was in a one-to-one with your humble self, Richard, where it's not just about the money and the returns and the strategy. There was this one-to-one, and it just dropped. It was about legacy. It was about legacy, and it's difficult to explain what that means to me personally, because it means a great deal. And it moved from being at the fringes to really pivoting to becoming something that, you know, is more at the heart of what I need to do. Do you see what I mean? It's not just about the money, making more money. It's just money, you know. And that has been a game changer for me, because it's bouncing around in my head now continually, and I'm trying to give it form, and that's not an easy thing. So, but it's like giving birth, isn't it? It's not easy.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's not easy, but you know, if you persevere, it can be incredible, and it's not just for me, you know. And that's in answer to that question. That's been the game changer for me, really.
Well,
it continues to.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Another powerful share. I remember that conversation. We talked for over 2 hours about that Friday night, I seem to remember. And we had other things on the agenda, but we didn't get any further than that. We just talked at length. It was very inspiring as well. I mean, the big takeaway is, you know, just to get yourself in front of someone and get what's inside out. You know, it's amazing what you've got inside yourself that's perhaps bottled up and has been bottled up for some time. It doesn't matter who that person is. Well, it might matter who it is, but, you know, it's just good to get it out, speak it out, speak those words and kind of name it. And, you know, that's getting in touch with our purpose, our destiny, you know, our legacy, as you said, Monica. So I feel very passionately about that and being, you know, true to ourselves. And it's not just about the money, as you say. What a great one. Anybody else got these great game changers?
Well, I guess for me, it was kind of self-belief or confidence. Once I kind of realized that I did know a little bit, like what I was doing was going to work and that kind of thing, you become a bit more open to stuff. I mean, a couple of years ago, I didn't want to network. I was listening to you on the podcast, and now I'm kind of on your podcast. I mean, that's quite a weird thing,
Yeah.
So yeah, just having confidence in what you're doing and in what you know as well. I mean, when I've been through, one of the HMO conversions that went wrong, it was kind of belief in myself. You listen to the builder and think, well, they must know best, but it wasn't. It was kind of me. I should have listened to myself, and it would have made things a lot easier at that point. So yeah, that's been a game changer in my eyes for me.
Yeah, trust yourself a bit more. Believe yourself. Just as a bit of a sidebar, you said that you listen to my podcast and stuff. Thank you for that. And then you reached out to me to invite me to come up and talk up in Darlington at your Property Thing networking group. And I have to say, the way you reached out and connected to me was stood out. It stood out. I've been coached in the past to go and speak for other people, but you did it in such a nice way that I just wanted to say yes. So I drove for about 4.5 weeks to get there, but it's.
Well, you made up for it, didn't you, by staying out till 4 in the morning?
Well, yeah, too, actually, but there we go.
Yeah.
We'll blame Martin.
Yeah, it was Martin. Yeah.
Anyway, brilliant one.
Oh, thank you for coming along. Yeah, it was great event, and hopefully when normality resumes, we'll have you back sometime.
Oh, I'm glad you will. I'll be there. Don't worry. Thank you. So there are some game changers. I don't know if there's any other game changers that people are burning to share.
I wanted to add in, partly brought about by the lockdown, the coronavirus, and the changes in the market and slowing down. But thinking outside the box has been big for me. So not sticking to the tried and tested path and just trying one thing and just accepting the fact that things have slowed down, but just really hustling and looking for other opportunities. It's a really cliche thing to say, is thinking outside the box, but it's just a case of looking at something from as many angles as possible. It's so competitive out there, and I watched quite a few good videos during the lockdown. Ryan Serhant and Tim Ferriss, they put some really good content out there, and just kind of, so that there was one the other day by Ryan talking about people saying 2016 is cancelled. Like, we're only halfway through the year. Like, let's smash it. And so much inspiration out there.
Yep. Brilliant. I don't know if you're nodding at me or not, Sven. So if you wanted to add one, you can. There's no obligation.
Yeah, I was going to just say, for me, it was a sort of period of forced reflection, really, because after being I'm still in business with my business partner, but about 2 years ago, she was getting to retirement age, and she said that she wouldn't carry on for much longer, didn't want to carry on for much longer, and she'd never wanted to hold any property. And I think it goes, like been mentioned before, leaving a legacy, that sort of coincided with having my daughter, who's now 2.5, and it really got me thinking about, what do I actually, am I just doing this for money, or am I doing this for lifestyle and also what I can pass on? It's not just about how comfortable you can make yourself, it's about what you can pass on to other people.
Indeed. Talk a lot about this legacies come up again, and lifestyle. It's not all about the money. There we go. So some people say it is all about money. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm thinking now of just probably some final thoughts. So if you just want to get yourself ready, what I'm going to go around the group and say is, have you got any sort of just maybe one tip? That could be a piece of advice. It could be a resource. A final thought that you might want to leave for people who've just got to the end of this podcast, 2-part podcast episode, you want to leave them with, and maybe, or if you want, and it's appropriate for you, how people might get in touch with you if you want them to. So if you don't want them to, then don't give any contact information. So yeah, a top tip, a final thought, and contact information if you wish. So anybody ready for that?
I'll jump in. I mean, I think a top tip for anyone starting out is just consume as much free information as you can before sort of jumping into expensive courses. You know, there's good and there's bad out there, but I mean, I've met two people at an essay networking thing who'd spent 16 grand on the same course, a husband and wife, and that would buy a property around where I invest. So yeah, just, you know, take in all you can before you go and put that kind of money down, because at the end of the day, you've got nothing to show for it if you don't ever follow through with the property. And what was the other thing? What do we have to say? Sorry.
Well, you've top tip, final thought, and contact information.
Right. Yeah, contact. So, I mean, look me up on LinkedIn or Facebook, Anthony Boyce. We have the Property Thing group. And I also run rocketarchitecturaldesign.com or wherever you find people these days on Tinterweb. Yeah, thank you for having me, Richard.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us, Anthony. It's been great. Who wants to go next?
I'll say I'll go next. I'll just really, just like you said, consume what you can and just get yourself out there and get stuck in. You know, that's all you can do. Just try and consume what you can, as much as you can, and see what resonates with you. Some of it you might think about it, but when you get stuck into it, you might think, this is not into this at all. You know, just try and do whatever you can and see what you like.
The supermarket approach, as I call it. Supermarket, you've got all these things on the shelf. You know, you don't have to take everything. You can leave some things behind, but it's all there for you to see.
That's the one.
That's the one. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. Any contact info, or have you deliberately not shared it?
Well, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I've not updated it for a while, but Daniel Riley on LinkedIn. If you want to send me a direct email, in fact, you can. That's Daniel Riley at gmx.com. You know,
Perfect.
please don't inundate me.
Yeah, putting your contact details out on the internet.
Why not?
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Thank you, Daniel.
No worries.
I'll go next if you like. I suppose the top tip would be mindset. Mindset is everything. It's probably the most important thing. You can have a positive mindset, and if you can reframe issues, mistakes as a positive, because that's how you learn, really. Perseverance as well, if you can have those two things set and get on your way. A little resource I've just started using actually, and it's made my life so much easier, is an app called Things, which is like it's like a smart to-do list, but for people like me who's got a brain like a sieve, then it's really helpful. And then contact details, I'm on LinkedIn too, Sven Chesters, and my email is sven@chestertonhomes.co.uk.
Thank you, Sven. Is that Things with an I or a Y?
Things, THINGS.
Okay, thank you for that. Choice of two left. Thanks, Sven. Choice of two.
Well, I'll just come in. Mine is top tip, just to kind of take from what Sven said, really, around mindset, and it's about just dealing with overwhelm. Just to believe that it will pass, that it's not defining. You know, if you think of all the challenges one has faced in one's life, they pass, don't they? You keep moving through it. And this moment where you are now, however difficult it may be, you will move through it. So it's just, again, the power of mindset, the power of belief. Yeah, that's my kind of top tip, to believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You've got this far. You know, you've overcome other challenges and difficulties, and you'll overcome this as well. So in terms of my contact details, I suppose you can reach me at my email address, which is monike.olushola@gmail.com, spelt with a K there, not a C, the Monica. So yeah.
Well, Monica, and we'll drop that in, because I've been calling you Monica consistently, but in a completely different spelling. So
No, it's just the email address that's spelled with a K, but normally I spelled it with a C. But yeah, so you're right. Not to worry, Rich.
Thanks, Monica. So I guess that leaves Carl.
Yeah. Okay. So Well, the biggest tips would have obviously been stuff that's been mentioned before about mindset and surrounding yourself with a community. I think there's a couple of smaller things for me, because I'm focused on cash flow, kind of making sure that personal finances are up to date. You've got a clear view of what's happening there, but also for the projects, making sure how they're stack up financially. In terms of working full-time in property, one thing that's really helped me is to work at a shared desk space. So I've got a young family, 2 young kids, so it can be challenging working from home. I haven't had much option during the lockdown, but yeah, working in a shared desk space has been really, really useful. I mean, really increase your productivity when you focus a bit more. Yeah, in terms of contact details, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, maybe pop that in the show notes, or my email address is Carl, C-A-I-L, @accoladeproperties.co.uk.
Very nicely done. Very nicely done. And what an absolute pleasure. It's been brilliant, guys. Guys and gals, sorry, to share with you some element of your journey, and I'm sure everyone listening in has taken away so much as well. It's exceeded my expectations. Actually, there's lots of quality, lots of rich content here. I'm sure loads of people are going to be inspired by listening to you. In my world, second steppers, but superstars. I'm just going to refer back to Monica's phrase earlier that, we all have superpowers, and I think you've all got that superpower burning within you, and I just wish you all the best as you continue that journey. And I'm looking forward to maybe sharing a sip of a cold beer or a pina colada on a beach sometime soon.
Looking forward to it.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Rich.
See you all soon. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.